Tonight, they promise to fight childhood obesity, but the biggest chains may be working harder than ever to get kids hooked on fast food. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, the death penalty in a horrific home invasion and murder. Dr. William Pettit, the father and husband of the victims, finds little comfort in the verdict.
The hole in your heart and the hole in your soul is still there.
Plus, the odd couple of the animal world. Like a lot of relationships, this one's headed to court.
From CBS News World Headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. In a perfect world, American families would gather each night about now for a healthy home-cooked meal. But for an increasing number of people, dinner is often fast food. 3 years ago, the big chains promised to help fight childhood obesity. But a report out today suggests they've done the exact opposite. It is the most comprehensive study ever into fast food nutrition and marketing. It shows that out of more than 3,000 possible kids' meal combinations at the major chains, only 12 meet nutritional guidelines for preschoolers. 12 out of 3,000. And last year, children between the ages of 6 and 11 saw 26% more ads for McDonald's than they did just 2 years earlier. More now from Ben Tracy.
In case you haven't noticed, you've fallen right into my trap.
First, there's the hot new movie kids just have to see.
Megamind.
Oh, bravo!
I must have it.
Then there's the fast food movie toy tie-in they just have to get.
Megamind.
And with the toys come this, a Happy Meal packed with calories and fat.
They wanted to see the movie, they wanted the toys, and it was a plus. They can get something to eat, they can get a toy.
It's, of course, a happy deal for marketers, but an unhealthy one for children. A standard McDonald's Happy Meal of Chicken McNuggets, small fries, and juice drink has 510 calories, 22 grams of sugar, and 23 grams of fat. Burger King's Cheeseburger Kids meals contain 580 calories, even more sugar, and slightly less fat. By comparison, Subway's Turkey Sub Kids meal has 325 calories, more sugar, but just 2.5 grams of fat.
Burger King is connected to the kids' meal.
The fast food industry spent $4.2 billion on advertising last year. And it's not just TV. McDonald's has 13 different websites. Each month, 365,000 kids and 294,000 teens visit those sites.
If you look at television alone, the average preschooler sees 2.8 ads on TV for fast food every day.
And the ads do work.
Every time we pass by it, he'll say he wants to go in.
40% of young children ask to go to McDonald's every week. 15% of preschoolers ask every day. So 84% of parents say they've taken their kids for fast food at least once in the past week.
The industry has been promising for years that it would do something about this. Self-regulation is a trick. It's a farce. It's a joke.
Which is why some think government needs to get involved. San Francisco just banned restaurants from handing out toys with meals if they contain more than 600 calories and more than 10% saturated fat. In a written statement, McDonald's told us they remain committed to responsible marketing practices, including advertising and promotional campaigns for our youngest customers. We are proud of our menu.
Now, McDonald's and Burger King both say they're only going to show their so-called better-for-you items in their advertising from now on. That's things like low-fat milk at McDonald's, these apple slices at Burger King. But, parents really have to ask for these things. If you simply go in and just order the kids' meal, you're still likely to get fries and soda. Katie?
Ben Tracy in Los Angeles. Ben, thank you. And we received several comments about this story on Facebook. William Lewis told us they don't care about the children. All they care about is what goes in the cash register. But Michelle Poole reflects the views of many we heard from, writing, "Quit blaming the food industry. Blame the parents. They teach their children bad eating habits." Now turning to the war on terror. Today, the TSA announced new rules for air cargo following that recent plot to send bombs to the U.S. disguised as printer cartridges. Toner cartridges weighing over 1 pound are now banned from passenger flights. Also banned any cargo from Yemen, where the plot began, and Somalia, a known base for groups linked to al-Qaeda. And cargo identified as high risk will be subject to enhance screening. Anwar al-Awlaki is a key member of the group that's claimed responsibility for the cargo bomb plot. The radical cleric was born here in the United States, but today a tape surfaced in which he made an unmistakable threat against Americans. Here's Homeland Security correspondent Bob Orr.
Wearing traditional Yemeni robes, with his trademark dagger at his waist, and sitting behind what looks like a talk show desk, Anwar al-Awlaki openly calls for attacks on Americans. Don't consult with anybody in killing the Americans, Awlaki says in the 23-minute tape. Fighting the devil doesn't require consultation or prayers seeking divine guidance. Awlaki, who is fluent in English, speaks only Arabic on the tape, which was apparently made before 2 mail bombs were recently sent from Yemen. The bombs were built by al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and Awlaki is a key figure inside that Yemen-based terror group. U.S. officials say Awlaki helped plot the failed underwear bomb attack by Umar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib last Christmas Day. And he was the inspiration for the accused Fort Hood gunman, Major Nidal Hassan. But it's his familiarity with American culture that makes Awlaki most dangerous.
We have an American, namely Anwar al-Awlaki, who grew up in the United States, who can talk to people in the same talk that they hear on the streets of Philadelphia or Chicago or L.A.
Association between Islam and terrorism.
A decade ago, the American-born Awlaki was an imam in California and Virginia. In the years since, he's morphed from teacher to terrorist and has joined al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden at the top of America's enemies list. Now Awlaki, believed to be hiding in Yemen, is targeted by the U.S. for capture or assassination.
The best case scenario would be someone in the Awlaki tribe itself turning over Anwar al-Awlaki or a bullet with his name on it.
Now, it's notable in his latest tape, Awlaki uses the very same words bin Laden used in 2001 in proclaiming death to America. Awlaki apparently views himself now as a new leader of al-Qaeda. Katie?
And Bob, he may be onto something because it seems as if Africa and the Arabian Peninsula now represent the center of al-Qaeda.
Well, Katie, there are twin trouble spots, if you will, in Somalia and in Yemen, both with American-born terror operatives at the center. But al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is still the biggest threat, and Awlaki is right now the biggest U.S. target. Yemeni officials have indicted him. They've pledged to go get him, but right now Awlaki remains at large. Katie?
Bob, we're in Washington. Thank you, Bob. In India, President Obama is wrapping up his visit tonight, the first of 4 nations on his 10-day Asian trip. After stopping in Mumbai, the president flew to New Delhi and drew applause today in Parliament by backing India for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. His other big announcement was meant for the audience back home, and it involved jobs for Americans. Our chief White House correspondent Chip Reed is traveling with the president.
During the president's 3 days in India, the pageantry was dreamlike, but the work was real. The hard work of prying open the surging Indian economy to more American goods.
I want to be able to say to the American people, when they ask me, well, why are you spending time with India? Aren't they taking our jobs? I want to be able to say, actually, you know what? They just created 50,000 jobs.
Those 50,000 jobs are the result of more than 20 deals worth $10 billion between India and U.S. businesses, including 10 C-17 military cargo planes that India will purchase from Boeing for $4.1 billion, a deal that will support more than 22,000 American jobs in dozens of states. Many of the deals have long been in the works, but that didn't stop the president from eagerly taking credit.
These are major deals that are significant for both our nations.
It's a sure sign that he learned at least one lesson from last week's elections, that his job is creating jobs, even while half a world away. But while here, the president also could not ignore the issue foremost in the minds of Indians, the close U.S. relationship with India's neighbor and arch-enemy, Pakistan. Memories of the 2008 3-day terrorist attacks in Mumbai, in which over 160 people were killed by Pakistani gunmen, are still fresh here. It's known as India's 9/11. It took the president 3 days here before he finally delivered the tough words Indians were waiting for.
And we will continue to insist to Pakistan's leaders that terrorist safe havens within their borders are unacceptable, and the terrorists behind the Mumbai attacks must be brought to justice.
Words that brought applause in Parliament and a sigh of relief from a nation.
Later tonight, the president heads for Indonesia, where he'll continue his campaign to open Asian markets to U.S. goods. For the president, it's also a homecoming. He lived in Indonesia for 4 years as a child, until the age of 10. Chip Reed, CBS News, New Delhi, India.
Meanwhile, here at home, it was a horrifying crime, a home invasion and triple murder in Cheshire, Connecticut. Today, the jury that convicted Stephen Hayes voted unanimously for the death penalty. Hayes was one of two men charged with murdering Jennifer Hawk Pettit and her daughters, 17-year-old Haley and 11-year-old Michaela. The attackers robbed and terrorized the family in July of 2007, then set the home on fire. The father, Dr. William Pettit, was also beaten and barely survived. Following the verdict, he spoke outside court.
This is a verdict for justice, and I think the jury took its time, listened to the evidence, and made an appropriate and just decision. People really need to be responsible for their actions, especially when they're viciously violent and create wanton destruction. I didn't want to be here and listen to the things that were being said in the courtroom. There was 1,000 times I wanted to jump up and scream out. I would say a little prayer, not necessarily to make things right, but for the strength to just keep going forward. Michaela was an 11-year-old little girl, tortured and killed in her home bedroom, surrounded by stuffed animals. And Haley had a great future. It was a strong and courageous person. I don't think there's ever closure. I think whoever came up with that concept's an imbecile. Whoever they are, wrote it the first time. And I think many of you know it who've lost a parent or a child or a friend. There's never closure, there's a hole. The way I've imagined it straight through, it's a hole with jagged edges. And over time, the edges may smooth out a little bit, but the hole in your heart and the hole in your soul is still there. So there's never closure. I was glad for the girls that there was justice, because I think it's a just verdict. But mostly I was sad for the loss that we have all suffered.
Jeff Glor has been covering the trial. He's in New Haven, Connecticut tonight. And Jeff, jurors deliberated for only 4 hours before coming back with a guilty verdict. So why did it take 4 days for them to decide on the death penalty? Do you know?
Well, Katie, the short answer is it appears that for a time this jury was actually quite conflicted. On Saturday, in fact, it appeared that 10 of the 12 jurors were actually leaning toward a life sentence, but they worked through the weekend, apparently resolved their differences. But even as the verdict was read this morning, one of the jurors was crying inside court.
Well, it's a big decision, obviously. And what happens next in this case, Jeff?
Well, lawyers for Stephen Hayes say he's actually thrilled about this. They say he's happy to die, but an appeal here in Connecticut is automatic. As for his co-defendant, that trial likely won't end until late next year. One of the points that Dr. William Pettit was making today, he says this whole process takes far too long. Katie?
All right, Jeff Glor in New Haven, Connecticut. Jeff, thank you. Another case that shocked the nation was the kidnapping of Elizabeth Smart in 2002. Today, she took the witness stand in Salt Lake City and told the jury of the indescribable fear she felt the night she was snatched from her bedroom by a man who put a knife to her throat. Smart was just 14 at the time. She was rescued 9 months later. The suspect, Brian David Mitchell, could face life in prison if convicted. And coming up next here on the CBS Evening News, asleep at the wheel, what's being done to keep drivers awake and alive. And later, if you thought it was odd that an elephant could be a dog's best friend, wait until you hear the latest twist. There are a lot of dangers on the road, and one we don't hear about that often is exhaustion. A study out today found that 1 in 6 fatal crashes involves a drowsy driver, an eye-opening figure. And Jim Axelrod reports on what's being done to keep them open.
It's a scary sight and more common than we might like to think. Drivers falling asleep at the wheel. 41% of drivers admit to having fallen asleep or nodded off at some point in their lives, according to a new survey done by AAA. 1 in 10 within the last year. More than half of them fell asleep on a highway.
Most people think they can control it. They can take care of it. But the research shows that nearly 60% of the people fall asleep just an hour within their trip.
9 years ago, Thomas Callahy was driving with his wife at 1:30 in the afternoon When he fell asleep and hit a tree, his wife was killed instantly.
Everybody has periods of drowsiness while driving, and what really kills is the belief by the driver that he or she's going to get through it.
This is the old-fashioned way of waking drowsy drivers. Rumble strips that create vibrations when the car veers off the road to shake the driver awake. This is the new-fashioned way, the technology that Mercedes-Benz now puts in some of its cars. Computers monitor drivers' behavior, such as small steering errors abruptly corrected, or the number of times a car crosses in or out of a lane. Then, if the 70-point check system determines it's early-stage drowsy driving, this alarm sounds on the instrument panel.
A big part of it is public education and people really understanding the problem and stopping the behavior.
Which is why the AAA is out with video like this, hoping to issue a wake-up call. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
Chrysler, in the meantime, says it's on the road to profitability, a big turnaround considering it emerged from bankruptcy less than 18 months ago. Between July and September, Chrysler cut its losses in half to $84 million. It forecasts a profit of $700 million for the year. And coming up next, one letter, one big guess, one for the game show record books. So it may have been the best guess in the history of game shows. On Wheel of Fortune last Friday, Caitlin Burke of New Jersey was faced with a 27-letter puzzle. All she had to work with was one of those letters and an apostrophe.
One L. And what's that?
Can I solve?
Okay.
It is a prize puzzle.
Yeah.
I've got a good feeling about this.
That's right.
How did she do it? Burke said she just had a good feeling about it. She won a trip to the Caribbean. It wasn't a lucky guess, but a trick play that turned a Texas middle school into an internet sensation. The quarterback for Driscoll Middle School pretended his team had been awarded extra yards on a penalty. He took the ball and casually strolled right through the defense. The other team was confused until he started running for the end zone. That trick play tied the score, but alas, Driscoll lost the game. Assignment America is up next, and it's a story you'll never forget. And finally tonight, we want to update one of Steve Hartman's most popular story. It's gotten 6 million views online. It's a story that made people smile until the lawyers got involved. Here's Steve with tonight's Assignment America.
The Elephant Sanctuary in Tennessee is home to 14 elephants, including what is now the most famous elephant in the world, Tara, known not so much for anything she's done.
Where's Bella?
As the company she keeps.
Oh, I see. Okay, white speck
okay, I see. Tara and her dog Bella are still best friends. Unfortunately, the humans in their lives aren't getting along nearly as well. Over the past year, there's been a huge falling out between the Sanctuary Board of Directors and the Sanctuary founder and former president, Carol Buckley, seen here on one of my previous visits.
That's cold.
The Sanctuary Board of Directors fired Buckley a few months ago. It's been hard to get a straight answer as to why. Buckley says she was never told why, and the board says it can't say why for legal reasons. Regardless, Buckley is now suing the Sanctuary for unlawful dismissal, defamation, and in a legal first, elephant visitation rights.
Carol will be the first to admit that Tara is like her child.
Buckley wouldn't talk to us on camera, but this is her attorney, Noah McPike.
Her entire life was that elephant sanctuary and was Tara.
Buckley got Tara when the elephant was a year old. She trained it, even taught it to roller skate. They performed across the country and for 20 years were inseparable. Even after Buckley started the sanctuary in '95, she would still go out and visit Tara regularly.
And now to have that bond suddenly broken, it's harmful to the elephant.
We need to remember that the elephants are not anyone's pets.
William Schaffner is on the Sanctuary Board and its new president.
We're interested in the elephants being as free from human interaction as possible, and that's been the philosophy of the sanctuary from the beginning.
He's right.
What are you doing?
In fact, before she was fired, Carol told me herself many times that elephants don't need human interaction.
Not only do they not need it, it's important that we don't do that.
That's why they rarely ever allow visitors here, no matter who you are.
We don't go out onto the sanctuary grounds.
You're not allowed out there?
No. They are their own intelligent, social creatures that interact with themselves.
Again, he's right. They've never had a case where an elephant has shown any long-term signs of missing a human. So what makes Buckley think Tara is any different? Exhibit Bella. Buckley's attorney will argue that Tara is unique among elephants, that obviously her ability to love extends beyond the boundary of species.
Good girl.
And that if somehow you could get inside Tara's head, you'd see that this is an elephant
How are you, babe?
with humanity.
I know.
There is one thing that both sides can agree on, and that's that the sanctuary continues to do tremendous good and deserves continued support.
And it's really not black and white, is it?
No, it's hard to. There's a lot of gray here, like a lot of elephant stories, but a lot of gray.
Wow. Thank you, Steve, so much. To be continued, I guess,
Yeah,
right? Let
yeah,
us know
exactly,
how things shake
exactly.
out.